Hey everyone, I'm really excited to be here to share with you a couple of amazing things, but particularly about hypnosis and even more particular about past life regression. The world is so curious about what it is and whether it's real or not. And I have led thousands and thousands and thousands of hypnosis sessions. Many of those were regression to this life and to other lives. I lead group events too, a group event where I take whoever's there, 10, 20, 30, 40 people to another lifetime that will serve them the most in this lifetime. And I do my best to set everyone up for success, to feel comfortable with the process. And I have a dear friend who's also a hypnotist and also has become really good at being a hypnotic subject. And she's going to share with you her name and a little bit about that. And then we're going to dive deeper into her experience with the past life regression because she found research that backed it up. Think about that.
Hi, my name's Rachel. I went to Randi's past life regression group session in March. And I had past life regression experiences with Randi and a few others before that. And those sessions, I did get stories from or past lives from, but I always found myself stopping to analyze or ask, am I doing it right? Or am I following instructions? Is this the way it's supposed to be happening? And this time, when I went into the session, I gave myself up to it and just said, whatever happens, happens. I'm going to trust Randi because I knew her better by then. I was just like, I'm just going with the flow. And what came out of it was mind-blowing for me.
Tell us more about that. Like, first of all, what did you do different that made it easier for you? Like, what did you say in your mind while you were being hypnotized?
Let go. Just let go. Let it happen. Trust Randi. Trust the process. Just let it go. Let it happen.
Cool. And so what I do is I prepare everyone and then I hypnotize everyone at the same time, which is actually easier. The most I've done at one time is 200 people. So I hypnotize them, took them to a peaceful place, and then I take them through a portal because that's my favorite way these days. And I take them through a portal that will take them to another lifetime that will serve them the most in this lifetime. And that's what I was doing with many people. I don't really know what they are experiencing. I'm paying attention to them, making sure and asking if they're still with me and doing the things I'm asking them to do, like going to the evening meal or seeking provisions. But everyone's having their own internal processing, using their imagination and trusting, or hopefully trusting, their impressions, what they're seeing, what they're hearing, what they're feeling, what they're smelling, what they're tasting. And Rachel had a profound experience and then could research it. So share with us, first of all, like a little bit about your past life.
So this particular past life, when I first came into that body during the regression, I was standing on a beach and I had a silk kimono on, which I couldn't have even said the word kimono when that was happening. I had to look up what's the word for what I was wearing.
But the word kept coming into your mind, like as a thought.
Yes.
Okay.
And I could see it and feel it, the silk. So anyway, I kind of, Randi guides you to come up your body and not your current body, but the body that you're regressing into. And I was able to see what I was wearing and what my body looked like, and my hair, it was black and plaited, like kind of braided, but fancy braids. And then the bottom part came over my shoulder and it was loose and it was long.
Well, okay, so if we talk about real quickly what I do is I take them to the evening meal after I take them to another lifetime. But first, once they get there, I want to get them associated. So what happens is, you notice if you have shoes on, and if they do, are they clean, are they dirty, what's happening, and then you start to notice if you're wearing clothes and if they're soft and silky or if they're dirty and what your hair is like. So I take you through all that, and she got a lot of wisdom from that little bit. Then I take you to the evening meal. So what happened when you went to the evening meal?
I went forward to the evening meal and I walked across the beach, and my family and extended family were at a very long table. It was a wooden table. There was flags with pennants, like flagpoles with very skinny pennants flying. I could tell it was a kingdom of some sort. I could see my family at the table and the other people from the court, like the king's court. I sat towards the end of the table, and I could sense that my brother, the king, was all the way at the head of the table, all the way at the other end. And I felt an immediate connection to the king as far as I knew he was my brother, and I knew that my role was for him. The reason I was there in the role I had was for him in some way to support him. And I'll get more back to that later, but Randi said, notice the food on the table, so I stopped looking at my brother and looked at the food. And in front of me I saw, or off to the side, I saw like a clay bowl of, it was some kind, it looked like potatoes, but they were yellow, like mashed potatoes, but they were yellow. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Why are we eating, something like potatoes if we're like a kingly family? Like, I didn't know, maybe we'd have something more special than that. That was my thought that popped in, like, I don't know why this is special on a family meal. But then I went and scanned some more, and I saw some meat of some kind. I wasn't quite sure what kind, but it looked kind of rough. I wasn't quite sure what kind of meat, but yes, then Randi moved us on to something else. I'm trying
Either
to remember.
seeking provisions or,
Yes.
or how you make your way in the world.
Okay, seeking provisions. So we moved on from the dinner table, and I was walking out. So this whole time I'm sensing that I'm on an island and I'm near Japan, and I keep getting this Japanese influence, but I kept saying, am I in Japan? And I kept getting the answer, no, you're not in Japan, but you're near Japan. So I kept seeing that I was on an island and that it was long and kind of shaped like rounded and bent like that. And I kept seeing that shape as I moved around the island. So we went to get provisions, and I had bare feet. I was walking with the other women, and we kind of walked out back behind the palace, which I can also describe in a minute. But we went out behind, and we walked through kind of a jungle or undergrowth. It wasn't really a jungle, but we walked through there to where we had cultivated provisions, and I saw us cutting down sugarcane, and it was new to us. It was a specialty item that we had put there, so I knew it wasn't native. It was a cultivation by us, and it was special. So we were cutting. I saw us cutting that down.
And then how do you make your way in your world? What happened there?
So,
and then just share anything else that's really important.
Sure. So making the way in the world. Well, there was two things. One is that there was my role, and it had to do with the king's court. So I saw myself in these sessions where the court was there, the king was there, and I would step onto like a round dais or platform, and like energy would flow through me and out of me. So I was holding a vibration or energy for the court or the king. That was like part of my role. So my role came up a lot. And then making my way in the world, like I saw myself going into town, and I went to a bread baker, like a baker that I bought some flatbread from, and it turned out to be my sister in this life, my sister and her husband, not her husband now, but in that life she had a husband. She also had 2 kids, and her shop was in the front of the house, and then the back of the house was their home, and she would invite me back, and that was where I could be myself, and I would laugh. We would sit on the floor and just laugh and talk, play with the kids. I felt most like myself at that time in that life in her house, where I could be myself.
Nice. Well, tell us more about your role, because energy and conduits, and that sounded incredible.
So I was confused by this role because it was almost like I kept getting the word the protector of the king, and I'm thinking to myself, how am I protecting the king? I'm a woman, I'm his sister. What, I don't get this, that he's being protected by me. Like, I don't have anything in my life currently that I have that context for. So that really confused me, but I went with it because it just kept coming, you're the protector of the king, you're the protector of the king. So as it turns out, in that role, I was not to be married or have a partner. That was part of the expectation of that role. I saw myself living out that role from young to old. And then eventually on deathbed, Randi will bring you to your deathbed, passing that role on to someone else. So in that lifetime, there was a young man that when I would go into town, I would visit. And he and I could see us together, him making me laugh, us just laughing and making food together. And I wasn't able to bring him back to the palace with me. And that was very hard for me because I couldn't be true to myself. So my sister, I would talk to my sister about that when I would go visit her. And she gave me such good advice as far as, so you keep saying that's your role. So you were born into it. So they're not going to take it from you. You can't, it is your role. You were born into it. So even if you're with somebody, it doesn't stop being your role, even though that's not the rules. So she said, you gotta be yourself, go down your path, be happy. It doesn't matter what they say or do. No, what's the worst that can happen? They're going to talk about you, they're going to judge you, but you still have this role. No one can take it from you.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us what maybe more about this role, whatever you want to share, and then the research, and then share what's important.
Sure. So the interesting thing Randi said during the regression was, is there something you should change in this lifetime? And that was the change I needed to make. That I saw myself bringing that young man back to the palace with me, and he lived with me. I don't believe we were allowed to get married, or we just worked together, and I made that happen, even though it was not approved. And I saw myself walking back to the palace with my shoulders up, my head up, a big smile on my face, just so confident, happy, powerful. I had stepped into my power instead of hiding something and denying my heart and my path. I had been denying until that point. So then I got home that night. A few hours later, I got home and I started researching, like, what was this island? What is this island? I haven't studied geography well. But I went to islands near Japan is what I Googled. And I found Okinawa. And that's the same shape that I saw, that whole shape of that island. So then I, in the regression, Randi had guided us to ask the time frame, like what year it was, and I kept getting 1620s to 1640s. So I researched Okinawa in 1620s to 1640s, and it came up with the Ryukyuan Kingdom. So I started researching Ryukyuan Kingdom, and there was a very important role for the king's sister, and she was the protector of the king. I was chills. Yeah, I was blown away because I had never even heard of such a thing. There was a bunch more things that I'm skipping over because of time, but I was able to take screenshots of everything and print it. It talks about the 2 crops, sweet potatoes and sugar cane, that were brought over to Okinawa in 1623, and they completely transformed the agricultural economy at that time. So then,
wow. Well, hold on.
Yep.
Can we just here you were you talked about those things, and then that's exactly what you read.
Yeah.
That's so profound.
As soon as I saw the picture of the sweet potatoes, right away I knew the color in the picture is the color I saw of the potatoes, the mashed potatoes in the bowl. And I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense now. So.
And I eat those, the
yes.
Japanese. I think they call them
purple sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was very cool. And the timing, it literally says in 1623, sweet potatoes and sugar cane were introduced to Okinawa. And during that time frame was the Ryukyuan Kingdom. So there was at that time Noro priestesses, they were called. And they had to be related to the king. So it says Okinawa's high priestess was a daughter or sister of the king, served as a spiritual intercessor and advisor to the royal household. So that, I was like, oh my gosh, it's for real. Like, I really, I got the reading right, because I'm, how you're like, am I making this up is always the question. So anyway, so I kept reading and finding more and more research behind it. The Ryukyuan Kingdom on Okinawa Island, I don't know if you can see this, but that shape is what I saw of the island that I was on.
That's so
yes.
cool.
And then I did more research on the women. because I was curious, like, so what was the role? Because the words the role kept coming up. And that's also translated to this life of a role that I've felt fulfilled in my family, at work, in so many areas of my life, always fulfilling a role instead of following my heart and living freely and openly from my heart instead of a set rule for a role.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I did more research on that. It says that the sister spirits, the sister goddess, performed or led various rituals for the protection and the prosperity of the king and kingdom. And those were the things I was seeing happening in the court, of me stepping onto the dais with the energy, flowing, holding the energy. And I kept asking during the regression, what does it mean to protect the king? And here it literally says, performed or led various rituals for the protection of the king. So I went even more, so it just keeps going. But, her role was to advise the king on spiritual matters, and she was involved in the state affairs, particularly those related to religious practices or beliefs. So then I was like, okay, can I figure out what these ladies' names were? Because Randi had said, ask what your name is. So I did, and I kept getting the letters M-A. So I got M, then I got A. And then I started going through the alphabet trying to, like, different letters. What's the third letter? But we moved on. Yeah, we moved on, and I didn't get to finish getting my whole name hashed out. But on the research I did in the 1600s, there was 2 of these women that it lists, and they both started with M-A.
Wow.
Both of those women, their names started with M-A. So I'm not sure exactly which one I was, but I believe I was the first one, Mabuni Ufu Anshi, a royal princess associated with the office when the kingdom was under influence from the Satsuma domain of Japan. And I felt that pressure from Japan the whole time I was in that life, that we were subservient to Japan and we were owing them money. The king was under a lot of stress. We had to keep the peace with Japan. We had to give them money and goods, economy-wise. And my role to the king was to support him under all his stress. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, so in first having all that really profound experience, and then going home and getting like proof that your intuition and your past life and all the things you were experiencing and allowing through actually happened, what was different for you? And then we can close up, but what was different for you after that in your life, in this life? Did any shifts about roles, any shifts about your intuition? Like, tell us a little bit about how you applied it.
For sure. So this was in March that this happened, and this is June now, so 3 months later. What has integrated for me is not being afraid of what other people think. It is not basing my life decisions on what I should do, because there's no shoulds. And it's not basing my life decisions on what other people think I should do, because that's a role to fulfill. I am releasing myself from roles anymore. It's confining. It's putting yourself in a box, and I don't want to be in a box.
So what are you doing now instead? You were saying the things that you no longer are doing. So what are you doing instead?
What I'm doing instead is anything that brings me joy is number one. So I'm starting to learn how to oil paint right now. I love beauty. I love flowers. I love sunsets. I'm constantly taking pictures of beautiful things, and now I am translating them to sketching and painting, which is I never thought I could do, and I'm doing it. I'm also with Randi doing training to integrate this more into my life and to help my family and other people who could also use some freeing. I feel that it's a lot of chains, a lot of boxes and chains, and just any chains and boxes I can free for myself and other people. That's my hope and goal, my intent.
Beautiful. Rachel, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm so glad we got that on the recording. Thank you, everyone. Anything else you want to tell anyone, tell the world?
Well, it's important for us to follow our hearts and be ourselves and stop putting restrictions and bars and blocks all around us, because we'll never reach our full potential of why we're here on this earth if we don't do that.
Thank you. Thank you.